These are the stories of my time and others as well that never seem to get the light of day. This is my time of being a dinosaur keeper at Jurassic Park. My name is Jack Stevenson, and buckle up because this is a story that has so much red tape. But now, we're ripping it down. I'd been working at zoos and sanctuaries for a couple of years before I was sat down by the legendary Robert Muldoon from Kenya. He had said he'd watched my work with animals over the years and was impressed. But he told me I could go bigger. Well, that had me interested. Before I knew it, I was on a plane to Costa Rica and signed many, many NDAs. Now they don't even seem to matter. Our families and friends were told I was working at a research base in the Costa Rican jungles. That was partially true. It was 1989 when I first started on Isla Sorna Site B. I didn't even know why it was called Site B. We had no idea about a Site A. INSTA had been working for a couple of years already, building Jurassic Park on Nublar, breeding dinosaurs, testing them. As a keeper, I should have been more interested of how these animals were alive. Well, how they brought the dinosaurs back never crossed my mind. All that matters is that they were alive and living creatures. And while INSTA remained corporate towards them, it was our job to keep them alive. Well, and safety and as well as healthy as the best we could. Some of the first batch of dinosaurs had already reached maturity and were being transported to the park when I arrived. Those ones were the now known as Brachiosaurus, Parasaurolophus, the Triceratops, Gallimimus, Tyrannosaurus rex, and Dilophosaurus. Mean little buggers. There was going to be a Tyrannosaurus rex going along with the adult there, over to Nublar. After I was brought in and saw that the one was way too young to be brought over yet, led me to a fight with Dr. Henry Wu, a lead geneticist on InGen. He claimed it was safe, and him and I tussled a little bit. In the end, I won, and somehow that put me on the lead team of keepers. And again, picking a fight with the lead geneticist probably wasn't such a good idea. Looking back at it now, we had a really, really good team. The team was myself, Lisa Jost, Sam Fisherton, Dr. Amanda Crichton, who was the head vet, and of course, Dr. Jerry Harding, who was the team lead. We would travel between the islands on a regular basis. Being that InGen wanted top secrecy, so only a limited number of keepers were actually hired to care for the animals. It didn't bode well with us. But that meant we had to work with both herbivores and carnivores. There were no separate teams to handle both species. We, the keepers, had to push every day for dinosaur welfare. InGen just wanted the numbers to be met of a certain number of species that to be alive at a given time. And the dinos to get basic treatment led us to many fights. But those fights, thankfully, due to the aspiring John Hammond being in charge and hearing about these fights, it led to many changes in improving the dinosaur needs. Of course, this was after some dino deaths. And of course, corporate wasn't happy about that, but that's typical corporate for you. The dinosaurs were bred on Isla Sorna at first, of course, but when they were born, they would go into the lab nurseries that would cater to each of the animals' needs. Looked more like a dog rescue more than anything. The dinos were bred to be accelerated in early growth on top of already natural accelerated growth, but once they hit a certain age, they would be transferred to large kennels. Going back to the dog-cat rescue looking situation, which of course leads to a whole bunch of other problems. We would care for the animals in there still, being one-on-one with feedings, playtime, and bonding with the dinosaurs. Muldoon would scowl at us for getting close with the carnivores, especially the raptors, but we continued on anyway. He seemed to be drinking out of his flask when he thought nobody was looking. The joke's on him, because most of us drank anyway. Now, you would be shocked at how playful a baby Rex is, especially a red Rex named Apple. Plus, a young Dilo doesn't even care to use its filler spit venom yet. It just seems to care about pets while they are young. Of course, though, we really have to distance ourselves, but who would not want to pet a dinosaur? And as I got older, that should change. After their time in the kennels, we would send them out to the large electric fence areas, of course. 10,000 volts. That would be where they would mature or bond with other dinosaurs, hunt, graze, that sort of thing. Not your typical zoo fare, but it's what InGen wanted. After they matured, we would send in capture teams who had special designed Humvees, Jeeps, and trucks. We would tranquilize the animals, put them inside specially made crates, and then transport via boat to Nublar. Of course, this complicates their behavior a lot, and would cause problems, of course, with InGen as well. Keepers were not exactly their favorite team on the island. Any of them. We faced diseases, though, of course, like DX. That took forever to clear up. Animal injuries on the regular, and of course, once the animals were put in larger pens, the security teams wouldn't let us go inside with the dinosaurs. Which, of course, that puts a severe amount of stress on their behavior. But who listens to the keepers, right? We only know that the animals that we've been with since they've been hatchlings, but hey. This is one of the many things InGen did. Didn't listen, though, of course. They barely listened to us. And when we did have changes, other things would be changed on the island to kind of counteract us. They had their deadlines, and they wanted their babies. Like the other workers on the islands, we lived in a worker village. Hammond made us feel comfortable, so it did feel like the island itself was a town. In between the pens, labs, and nurseries was a worker village. That was where we had apartments, pools, tennis courts. Hell, we even had stores, gas stations, and a theater. Hammond did spare no expense at trying to keep us entertained on the island. Of course, even though it was slightly illegal at the time, we were able to take PTO and head to Costa Rica every couple of months for a week. But even when we did, we knew we couldn't say a word. It always did feel like they had eyes on us, always watching, waiting for us to spill a secret so they could kick us out. And who knows what the hell else they would do. There were often corporate visitors to the island as well. People Hammond wanted to team up with, such as Jeep, Coke, and also seemed to be some shady people as well, individuals in those suits he never really wanted to talk to. Felt like you could disappear. People in military uniforms would show up, of course. Some American, some Costa Rican. We never knew really why, but some of us keepers often would have a drink and say it was probably due to containment and protocols. Hell, we knew as much as they tried. They couldn't hide an operation from the CIA. Like, this operation was too big. No way. In 1992, we had new species being introduced by Wu. And actually, this was during the time that one of the co-founders' daughters, Benjamin Lockwood, his daughter Charlotte, actually came and stayed with us for a while. Cute kid. Entertained by the Microceratus a lot. And, she was a pretty smart cookie as well. She would stay in the lab, but also come out in the field with us, actually, and learn about the dinosaurs in the open environment. The new species included Mamenchisaurus, a sauropod species, Stegosaurus, Pachycephalosaurus, Protoceratops, and new types of velociraptors besides the brown ones we had from before. These ones always couldn't be trusted. They were a little bit more nibbly than the others. These were groups B and C. B was tiger-striped, and group C was white and black stripes and dots. Not exactly a good camo. The new species were tough to adjust to the species we already had on top of it. Because of the secrecy, there were no extra hired staff, so we had to work incredibly long hours. Never actually had a day off when you worked at InGen. The one we always did feel bad for was the dinosaur food department. Those folks worked in the kitchen day and night prepping herbivore and carnivore meals. Now, they took me to Nublar on a special task, though, at one time. I do remember it had to do with the T-Rex, which needed some adjustments. Rexy was Lisa's baby anyway. She worked with her since she hatched in the 80s. Apparently, the corporate crew on Nublar decided it wasn't acting excited enough for future guests, so they added noises of raptors in the pens to the speakers to get her agitated. Classic corporate. After a long, heated discussion with Muldoon and Hammond, they took out the speakers, but put the roaming goats she could hunt on a chain by the tour vehicle's fence. Well, you win some, you lose some. Robert Muldoon and I were put in charge of a secret project in Nublar. And we'd check on periodically, and one so secret barely anyone knew, and we knew better to talk about it, or the cameras would catch us. We never even knew where some of the cameras were. It harkened back to my days working with sharks, because that was the aquatic exhibit involving a Tylosaurus, a mosasaur, a prehistoric aquatic reptile, a massive one at that. They wanted to have divers and shark cages to add to the thrill of the exhibit. But after how aggressive it was to the underwater dome, the project was put on hold until we could figure out how to calm down an ancient sea beast. This is when things got serious. We all heard about Joffrey in 1993 with the Raptors. He was a good man. Trusted him with a lot of our lives, with him being a gatekeeper. We had to count on him for so many scenarios, and we never really got over that day. But after that incident, there were hands-off approach with the Raptors, of course, and the carnivores. Orders strictly coming up from the top. Even though we stake our claims the animals needed to be worked with behaviorally, the suits still got in the way. It didn't stop there. We noticed color changes happening in some of the dinosaurs, but not all of them. Only certain ones in pens with the others of the same species, and then only some of the ones in isolation. The lab, mainly Dr. Wu, claimed there was nothing wrong and that there was no need for tests. Their creations were perfect and it was our fault, possibly due to feeding or how we were working with them behaviorally, or possibly the environment we were still maintaining in their exhibits. Despite our claims, there were write-ups and almost being fired, claiming all this must be again our fault. Them engine and their money-hungry suits. Now, this is where it gets interesting even more. It was a month after that we noticed some of the dinosaurs actually, had some male parts going on. We were blown away by this. How could this become a thing? We all knew that all the animals were bred female, but after some debate, we found out that must have been the tree frog DNA in the dinos. One of the keepers actually took that damn tour and actually was trying to figure everything out. How the hell they had time, I had no idea. We went to the labs and the higher-ups about this, but they claimed it was impossible and that we needed a break and were being worked too hard. We even showed photo evidence, but it was claimed by security, of course. Weren't allowed any cameras after that. Any bit of evidence was destroyed and was hushed into secrecy by the board. We don't even know if Hammond knew about it. We were then told that Hammond and the rest of the board, which was a concerning thing to hear about, was going to know about this until after the lawsuit with Joffrey and the first tour was complete with the lawyers, and specifically some people related to the dinosaurs of some kind. Then the storm came. Storm hit hard. We had partial fence failure for the Packies, power failure in the work areas, and flooding all over the island. Not even our Jeeps could make it through the roads. We knew that Sorna was being hit hard. The next couple of days that they were mending what damage we could, we heard no word from Nublar. But corporate said they were sending in rescue teams. We thought the worst after that. We were then filled in on the news. Survivors on the island on Nublar were rescued, the survivors that there were at least, and the island was shutting down, going into quarantine. So was Sorna. We were told on Nublar that the dinosaurs had all gotten free. Some of us are happy at that thought. Animals had regained their right over the island. There would be more than just these dinosaurs on exhibit. And secretly, that's all what we wanted. We knew we didn't have time to mourn the loss of our friends, though, because the security team was actually having all of us workers leave the island and forget about the dinosaurs, claiming that the NDAs we had signed and nobody would believe us in the mainland. We, of course, would not let that happen. Us keepers and a couple of the other workers from different departments banded together, and we actually fought a security team. And had to get a right hook, too. Said we needed to let all the animals free, otherwise they would just die in their cages. They didn't seem to care, and that just even riled us up even more. Old Doc Crichton threw in a couple of good punches, too. Apparently she used to box. The goons with the guns that were supposedly our rescue squads, they actually let us go, and we had 2 hours till the last boats and choppers would leave. We started, of course, in the nurseries, as we let the newborns join the dinosaurs in the kennels. And let those ones out as well, making bonded pairs and hopefully future herds or hunting packs. I had to say goodbye to one of the newer brachiosaurs. His name was Rosebud, due to the green bodies and red head tops, unlike the other brown ones on Nublar. I hugged her as she whined, and she wrapped her neck around my body, embracing my hug before she left through the door into the jungle. I hope Rosebud actually grew up and made it out okay. We then left all the cages open and shut down the fences to the larger pens. Every carnivore, every herbivore is now set free and was able to roam free on the island. Of course, we did not set free the pteranodons. We knew that they would get off the island and wreak havoc, and who knows what could happen. But with a constant stream of fish going through the aviary, they always had food, so we knew they'd be okay, at least for a little while. That was a tough choice. Of course, so we went to the farm. We let loose all the cows and goats on their island's ranch to at least give the younger carnivores a fighting chance. After that, we made it to the choppers and flew over in some Hueys as we watched the animals explore new parts of the island, all taking what should have been theirs. Years after, those of us in the States had a yearly get-together to reminisce about our times on the islands. Due to the secrecy in the NDAs, there was no one who could ever talk to. Think of it as a dino support group. A few years later, in the late 90s, at one of these meetups, we heard that some of the keepers were recruited for Jurassic Park San Diego. And to our amazement about this stupidity of an idea, to work for thing when it opens. And this led to us finding out about the poacher team being sent to Sorna to hunt the dinosaurs we cared for and their offspring. Plans were underway to sabotage the damn thing, but right when InGen... what right did InGen have to ruin the biological miracle that Sorna was? Hell, the rumor was Nublar was bombed by Costa Rican government. Luckily, that was a lie. And of course, after that Rex rampage in San Diego, we all knew, and when Hamden gave his speech in the news that day, we knew that the dinosaurs were going to be safe. Or so we thought. I was working at some zoo when word got to me years later in the early 2000s that one of the other keepers, Lisa Jost, was actually recruited by InGen. Somehow that company still lived. To return to Sorna and work on breeding new dinosaurs. I couldn't believe it till Dr. Alan Grant went on the news after that rescue operation happened. And he mentioned all these new species not on InGen's list, even a Spinosaurus. Lisa returned my calls later, and she explained to me she went to research the animals there and to help with the breeding. Thought she could take them down from the inside. That sounds like Lisa. But all that happened there was chaos on that island. It was just a couple of years later that Masrani Corporation, that was just bought by InGen, wanted to save the dinosaurs after Hammond's death. And Simon Masrani was put in charge of making Hammond's dream come true. And we all knew what was going on in the islands. Poachers, rich game hunters, all the stuff like that. They were all hunting the dinosaurs. And as much as they tried to quarantine the islands, everybody always got through. One thing I'll give Masrani, he was a pretty legitimate businessman and a good man at that too. He came to each one of us keepers from the old park days personally. All of us who worked at Jurassic Park and Site B, no matter what position, he wanted us. He wanted us due to being the only people on Earth to know how to care for dinosaurs. In this new sanctuary park he was building called Jurassic World. Like that would catch. We all agree because it's the only way we knew we could protect the animals fully. And my bones are feeling it when I remember going to Nublar and rounding up the dinosaurs there so they could actually begin construction. It was a long process of temporary enclosures and trying to survive old Rexy who had lived through so much. She apparently had ragged tooth. You know, girl. Hunting all the Gallimimus and whatever other dinosaurs were left in the island. Plus, the goats that bred uncontrollably. It was a long process. After some work was done, we went to Sorna to capture all the dinosaurs we could and bring them over as well. Thanks to InGen and their work before, that Lisa tried to stop, as well as all the poachers, that environment and ecosystem there was completely foobarred, causing all sorts of liver and hell. We knew there was only a matter of time before it all collapsed and everything went extinct on that island. That, though, is a story for another time. The park opened in 2005, and currently myself and all the other dinosaur keepers from the old days currently leading all these newbies and the next generation of keepers just like us. We teaching the new kids how to care for these majestic creatures and to help get the possible care and best possible care that they can. And they actually have a boss who listens and a corporation that treats them more like animals than just test subjects or theme park attractions. The dinosaurs couldn't be safer and happier, and neither could we. Now you know the story about the true people who kept Hammond's dream and dinosaurs alive. This is Jack Stevenson, signing off.